Hi everyone, and welcome to Architecture Photography Tutorials. I'm Eric Lucero, and welcome to our first video. This one today is going to be on Capture One to start out with. Since that's where I start my tethered captures from on location, I'm just going to run you through a quick example of how I set up a session and how I then take that session from my laptop to home to work on my home studio. Everything I shoot on location is done on a laptop here, and from that laptop, once I get home, I transfer it over to one of these little SSD drives. This one's a Samsung. I highly suggest you pick one up. They're super fast and they're quick to edit from, and it's convenient, especially if you are doing like I'm doing, where you are shooting from a laptop on location and switching to a more efficient computer at home. I also use a laptop on location that's less expensive. I don't deck out my laptop. I just need something to capture on location in case that laptop goes down. If it gets dropped while we're on location, I don't lose my complete workstation. I can still come home and have full editing capabilities from my house until the computer gets repaired or replaced. And usually at the end of the day, I just transfer all those files directly onto that SSD, just so I have them in case anything happens to that laptop in between the shoot and me getting home. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to show you why I use Capture One sessions. I think they're the most efficient and best way to go about doing your tethered capture over cam rangers. I know a lot of you use cam rangers, but I think if you give Capture One a try, you might find you like some of these features from it and can work it into your workflow. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so we're back here in Capture One. I'm going to the SSD drive, this T7 Samsung. The job we're going to do today was from a designer. We had to shoot a basement bar for her. Looks like we had about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different angles, probably 7. And then I shot some handheld details as well. The one we're going to work on today is going to be bar wide. So as you can see, if I click the drop down, I've got my capture folder here, and it's really convenient. All the shots from this session show up right away for me. So what we did here, I kept some of these files just to show you guys. Normally I delete them just because I don't want to have files that I'm not using. So normally I delete them on set. So as you can see, we took some exposures here. These would just be like shooting Polaroids when you're on film, which is where I came from, how I started with shooting Polaroids. So I'm totally used to this method. I know Cam Ranger has live view, and a lot of you are used to doing all that in real time. I know that Capture One is working on it. That's the one thing they don't have yet. That might be a little bit frustrating for some of you that are used to live view, but again, it's not a big deal. You take an exposure, you look at it, you make an adjustment, take another exposure. I kind of prefer not having all of the moving people and everything around as a distraction anyways. So, okay, so as you can see, we took some exposures as we were getting set up, and I always use a white balance card for every shoot that I'm on. You can see it right here in the shot. There's a lot of times when I'm on location and I don't get to these edits for a week, 2 weeks before I'm getting out there or getting here at the home studio and getting them edited. So there may be times where I don't remember exactly what the room looks like. This is one huge benefit of Capture One over Cam Ranger, because I see a lot of you guys transferring those files from Cam Ranger, getting home, putting them into Lightroom, and trying to find something white in the room to get your white balance from, because it just took it from a disk, and now you've got this disk and you're loading it at home into Lightroom, and you got to do all the guesswork from there into Lightroom and basically start your whole process from there. Whereas with Capture One, I'm shooting tethered. I'm doing everything on set, on location, as much as I can. So when I get home, everything's already done for me. All I have to do is export those photos. I'm showing you guys right now how the process would go if I was on location. And I'll show you here but in a minute how I would clean it up on location, so when I get home I can just export those photos. So I always get a white balance. Find yourself a good white balance card. Not all white balance cards are created equal. I've bought at least a dozen of them. They don't always work great. I like whatever these little sticker ones are. I'll find out for you at some point. It looks like they're OP cards or QP card 101. You can probably Google that and find them. They came with a phase 1 camera that I had a while ago. They're the best ones I've ever had, the most accurate. So if you can find those, use them. I've tried YBAL cards and some of the other ones out there, and they're always just a little off. This one usually works the best. So anyways, we got the white balance, and usually what we do at this point as well is we will adjust for the parallels and get all that set up on location, so I don't have to worry about that when I get home. I mean, obviously from here, you know, to here, my camera said it was level on the cube, but when I got it actually in there and was looking at grids, it was just a little off. So I make those adjustments right there on set. The client sees them. All my verticals are perfect. My color correction is good, and they're looking at it on an iPad almost close to what they're going to see it like when it's fully edited. So another reason to look into Capture One and tethered capture when you're on location. So once I get that white balance card, I usually go back through and I get rid of the files that I know I don't need. It's gonna move these to the trash, so I don't need those anymore. There's no reason to have them. Again, I think we were doing some more staging here at this point, so until we got down to our final capture. So I always mark my white balances with a yellow tag. That way I always know that that's where my starting point is for each one of my sections. So I usually break up my sections into my daylight exposures, my strobe exposures, and my lights. I expose for each one of them differently, so I have complete control over what I'm blending in. So this white balance, I just transferred again down to here, so I'm just going to delete these. Okay, so now I'm essentially starting from this neutral file, which should have a pretty good base exposure for me, and then we're going through and starting dim, gradually bracketing these up brighter with all of our strobe exposures. As you can see, we had this hot spot on the wood here, so I'm sure I turned off some lights and kind of maneuvered that around with my lighting to make sure that we have some exposures that don't have that hot spot in there, so I can paint those in later. So there was some strobe maneuvering. All this back here, I know I was getting some bad color shifts, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So I strobed down these stairs for color. You can see here, I'll probably use these for color just to paint them in. It's always smart to do that whenever you have color shifts. Hit it with the strobe. That way you've got the color in something that's regulated, that you have complete control over. You know the consistency of your lights, and you know that they're going to be white, so you don't have to worry about not having a control layer for those. So it looks like the brightest one we got for this door was right here. I'm actually going to clone this variant, which basically is just creating a copy of that exact same layer with the exact same settings I had, and I'm just going to give us one more here with a little brighter with a full stop boost. So now I have more of that color detail here in this door. I'm actually going to go even a little brighter, of a stop and a half, just to make sure I have the right color there in that door so I can use it later. Another reason I like using Capture One is I can just clone that variant. It's got all my settings already on there. I guess you can do it in Lightroom too when you're at that point of editing. So now I'm doing another white balance here. So this white balance is for my daylight exposures, and I always put this in the main area of the shot. because as you can see, there's a lot of daylight coming through this top area here with the where it was opened upstairs. In this room, there was only one small window right behind the camera, so we didn't really want a lot of that lighting the whole shot. It would have made it flat, and it was a basement, so there wasn't a whole lot of daylight coming through there anyways. There wasn't a lot of high quality light coming through there. So, but I like to use it as a fill, so it makes it look natural. If you don't have those daylight layers, it can tend to look a little strobed, looking a little artificial. If you can add some daylight layers in there, it really helps everything just kind of keep that sense of realism. So again, started with a white balance just for the daytime. I figured this was a good spot to get kind of a overall exposure. You can see how this color shifted back here quite a bit. That's why I took this strobe layer. See how much cleaner that color is. I'll show you in the edit portion of this. Okay, so this was my brightest exposure, and my assistant that was shooting with me that day, he actually should have got me one a little brighter or two, because I like this area to be a little bit brighter, almost blown out. So I have it for color, or I have it for fill on the shot if I need it. So what I'm going to do, and I'll show you here too, the reason I had that cloned was, here's a new variant. Here's without white balance. Here's without any settings as far as verticals. Like, this is straight out of camera. So when you're shooting with a Cam Ranger, this is what your client is seeing from a daylight exposure. It's not very appealing compared to, at least this looks pretty nice. They're not going to be like, oh, can you fix the blues? Can you fix what's going on? Like, with all these color shifts, can you make it brighter? Can you do whatever? When I'm working in Capture One, it looks like this on set. If I need to do anything, I can clone this variant. If they say it's still a little dark, guess what? I'm on set. I can bump one up for them. Now they have this to look at. It looks way better than this. Just as a reference, good reason to use Capture One on location is that one thing alone, is having a live version of what your edits are going to look like when you start them at home. So, okay, this one I don't need because it's blue and disgusting. I just wanted to show you guys what the difference on that looks like. It's pretty bad. Okay, so now I have this one, which is bright enough for anything I would need to fill in shadows with. So here's my daylight exposures going down. I always get one that's really dark, and again, I'll share that with you in my edit section in the next video. But try to get one that doesn't have much detail here, and I'll show you why. It might not seem like you would ever use that exposure. I think we even got, no, we didn't get one darker, but I turned those into a screen layer, and I'll show you why in the edits. So always make sure you're bracketing a full range here of really bright to really dark, even though it may not seem like you will use them. I'll show you why you will. And then lastly, again, I expose for the lights. I start this one at 1/1000th of a second all the time for these can lights. Again, it might not seem like you would use it, but I will show you how using screen layers, you will end up using these layers. Even though it seems like there's not much there, you will use. From there, I always go to 2 stops brighter. Again, another 2 stops. And now I'm starting to get in some of these can lights that were overhead. And I actually put a light up here that wasn't up there. If you guys can, I highly suggest picking up these little Godox lights, because you can turn them on and you can put them on a shelf. They're super small, they're portable, they're rechargeable, and especially on bars and things like this, I just put it up there in the on this top shelf since there was no lighting, just to add a little bit of extra kick light in there. And I just tried to match it to whatever the color temperature of this light was. Usually those are tungstens, about 3700 degrees. I just set that thing to 3700 degrees, popped one up here, and now it looks like there was light there, and I can paint that in or not paint it in depending on if I want it or not. Again, I get these bright just so I can paint in some of this later as well. And then I had under cabinet lights, so now you can see I was kind of mimicking those lights up top that I was getting down below. And I can't stress strong enough just to get these in their own exposure so you can paint them in to taste however you want them. If you want, you know, this brighter section, or if you want to make this more orange or more blue, if you want to white balance them, you can do it when they're on their separate layers. If you're doing it all while you've got strobes going, you're now getting daylight influencing your tungsten, and it's harder to get the edits at the end of the day. So do them separate. It'll save you a ton of time in post-processing, and I will show you that again in the next video. So now that we've looked at all the files, I'm just going to select them all. I'm going to go back through. I've got a white balance. I know I'm not going to use that one. I've got one more white balance. I know I'm not going to use that one, so I'm going to deselect those. I'm just going to keep it simple. Go to exports. I have this set up to, I called it a standard export. I set it up this way. I'm using a Fuji GFX 102, so it's huge. They're huge files. I found the sweet spot is to lower everything down to about 10,000 pixels on that camera. Just makes it more efficient to edit on my computer. I think they come out around 12,500 pixels or something. It slows down a little bit at that point. I'm actually gaining information by having that many pixels and then shrinking them down to 10,000. So all that information was there. I'm just making those pixels more condensed, so you get a super high res image even when you size them down. Nobody ever uses them over 10,000 pixels. So I have it just to export at TIFFs at 8 bits. No reason to use 16-bit and go crazy. At this point, I'm just blending them together. I'm not doing any other of the raw information. That was all done here in 16-bit, so I don't need to have to edit them further in 16-bit because nobody's going to use them, and it just makes the files way too big to mess with. I have copyright set up and a few other settings. You can go through all this on your own. There's nothing really crazy I'm doing here, but I just have it set to this setting so it has all this information every time. Everything gets exported the same way with this setting. So again, I've got all that set up, so it all just goes here to another SSD drive, which I edit off of, and you can just choose that folder here. You can go to choose folder, and I just do it to another SSD drive. I think it's this little G drive here. And then I just set up a folder called processed. And then everything processed goes to that folder. Keeps everything easy. I'm all about simplicity and quick workflow. So I will export those images, and I will see you in the next video when I show you how to go through those edits. Thank you for watching.